What's up, everyone? Elaw here, Internet's second tiredest music teacher. Uh, Today, wrapping up the end of the quarter for teaching, so I'm dragging a little bit more than normal, just with all the stuff going on. I'm gonna try and keep the energy really, really good moving forward, especially since today is checking out a new track by a new artist, and want to give it all what I got. So, with that though, we are going to be checking out the track Ready to Fly by Japanese musician, producer, composer Takanaka. No, sorry, Masayoshi Takanaka. And based on what I saw briefly here, he's a guitarist, as far as I can tell, and has released at least 20 albums in his 50 plus year career, which is fantastic. And also, from what I was able to see just very quickly online, played his most recent show from as of recording this video, played his most recent show 4 days ago. So at the age of 73, he's just out here crushing it. And that is just, what else can you say? It's just fantastic work. So with that, I'm going to keep it as high energy as I can. And let's check this track out. Right off the bat, this is like it makes me think of anything Timbaland did with Justin Timberlake from like 2006, maybe 2005 until like 2013, 2014, where you've got a lot of this vocal percussion kind of stuff. I don't know if I would call this beatboxing, but and it's not quite like a cappella performance. I don't 100% know, but it's so cool. And hearing the different ways that layering in these sounds, and at least here in these headphones you got some spatial uh, dis- discernment. So a lot of the really low end stuff is coming through down here in the bottom part of the left headphone, and a lot of these really high closed sounds like the and things like that are way up here in the mix, and it's, I don't know, it's really cool. So I'm just gonna keep it going though. Uh, Pausing early on again. Um, the guitar writing when it first comes in reminds me very much of the writing that you hear in Steve Reich's um I can't think of, I just had it on my tip of my head here. Um Electric Counterpoint, that he wrote for electric guitar. So that's really interesting. And not knowing how these two timelines match up, um, my assumption though is that there's probably a little interplay between their influences on each other, with them both being composers. But I don't actually know that for any sort of fact. Please don't take my word as like a gospel there. But the writing felt very like that energized minimalism, and the tone was just, it was great coming through there. And but we also got this like super nice Latin groove. We got the little with the triangle and the dampening quickly on some of that. It's all groovy. Anyway, keeping it moving. Through that part, okay, well, first, I really love the bass line going through. That's the kind of bass line that I would just love to sit and play all day. It's straightforward, but it's really active, fun, bumping around, and it's just got such a nice. I can't quite articulate my thought on the tone, but it's like a round tone, but it doesn't like bleed out of its space. It's a very punctual circle in its own little spot as he's or whoever's going through and playing it. I think that's such a great sound. And then it's kind of like a funk sound almost. Like not quite like 70s, 80s funk, but like getting kind of in that range. Um, then with that guitar solo, I suppose, um, with it being doubled, it sounded like a synth, but not like a traditional fixed pitch synth, but something sliding, almost like a theremin, um, mirroring what was going on there, but it's also not quite a theremin sound I can think of. So I don't know quite what it was that was doubling there. Maybe a steel guitar running through some sort of effect, but it's a really interesting way to color all of that. Yeah. And then that part, I'm sorry, I'm pausing like every 50 seconds here, but that part reminded me of, and I don't mean this in any condescending way, but of the smooth jazz that I would listen to with my grandfather in his car when I was young, like 8, 10, 12 years old. And that just brought back some nice memories. So I appreciated that. pause it here for a moment. So back here, I guess about halfway through, just a little over halfway through, um, you hear this very active change in the mix that I thought was really cool. It was really interesting. The guitar really like faded back almost out of the picture entirely as he was going through and playing. And for me, I was hearing a lot of the percussion very prominently, and then the keys right underneath of that. And then uh, it really allowed that emphasis to go over to what the keys player was doing. But it was like this really subtle transition as we changed like the levels going through there. And then where we got to this part right here, it brings the guitar right back up to the front. And yeah, just hearing that in the mix, that's really nice. It gives a really great additional layer of musicality. I'll talk about some other stuff and get to the end. Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, so coming back off of that, well, first I apologize. I had to grab my coffee, keep myself, sorry, keep myself ugh, moving through here this morning. Um, right off the bat, this track, absolute monster. And Masayoshi as a musician and composer, fantastic, fantastic work just across the board with everything that went into this track. Um, at about that halfway mark that I was talking about earlier, around the 3:45 spot, um, what we start hearing is a lot of syncopated work going on and changes in the keys. And then as that starts to get more active rhythmically, is when the guitar starts to fade back into the background and lets the keys come forward. And then it puts a lot more emphasis right up front with these contrasts between the percussion and the keys, giving it a really heavy rhythmic drive. And then the guitar just pulls right back up in and mirrors some of that as it goes into the transition for the next part. And that's just like musically, that's great. That's some stellar writing. And it's a very, very well thought through idea to allow for the best presentation and strongest emphasis there, I think. I don't know if that could have been done really much of any other way. And it just that that was awesome. And then as we get towards the end, and I don't mean this in like a controversial way, but the last little bits of playing kind of reminded me of Eric Clapton on the track Layla and in the second half of the track. And I know there's a lot of thoughts from people about Eric Clapton as a human, but I think the second part of that track, Layla, is one of the most beautiful things, pieces of music I've ever heard. I love it so much. Um, the first part of the track is fine, but the second half, I just think it's spectacular. So hearing some of the stuff that brought my mind to that, I thought just like allowed this track to like float its way right off into the end, which I guess for the track title, Ready to Fly, that plays in so nicely. It's awesome. And yeah, yeah, I think all around, um, I don't, so I was thinking, I don't think Masayoshi is necessarily the type of guitarist that is aspiring to be hyper virtuosic, like maybe like Steve Vai or Ying V Malmsteen kind of thing, where it's just all super technical, quick, fast moving. And not all of their stuff is like that, but he's he's exceptionally proficient. Please don't get me wrong. Like he's very well up there. Um, but his writing and performance delivery of what he's doing is what sets him apart, I think, based off of this one track that I've heard, but sets him apart from like 99% of guitarists and really brings that next next level of musicianship, musicality. And this track was actually a suggestion from the Google form, and it was back in October, and I feel so much like a bum for not getting back to it until now because holy crap, talk about a killer song. So while I'm going through and finishing up the rest of grades for this quarter for today, I'm just gonna run his album Takanaka, I guess, top to bottom, and see what I think about the rest of it. Because if it's like that, like what we just heard, it's gonna be a great day. Yeah. So whoever, if you're seeing this, whoever suggested it, thank you so much for this one. But yeah, if you like this kind of, well, actually, sorry. So, well, yeah, let's do this way. So if you like this kind of content, you want to see more of it, don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, don't forget to ring that bell for notifications. Getting better about dropping videos relatively consistently. And then if you want to suggest a song for me to check out, I really promise you I'm trying to be better about the form. But you can find the link to that form in the channel description. And that's the best way for you to request something. I know comments always seem like an easier thing. You're just dropping it right there. I am not the best person at going through and seeing comments. I appreciate everyone that leaves a comment, but sorry, I do see all of the comments. I'm not the best about going back making notes on what people are suggesting in the comments. But if you drop a suggestion in the Google form, I get an email notification. It's all right there in a spreadsheet for me that I can keep track of. And that works really well for how my brain is set up. So, um, yeah, with that, I would love to hear more tracks that are more artists that are not in my main field of vision, I suppose. So I think you all know what I mean. My taste is kind of vanilla sometimes. So with that though, yeah. Until next time, internet's second tiredest music teacher. This is E law out.